Oh, we are on the 48 Laws of Power in Prison. Law number 2. I'm just going to read a summary here. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Be wary of friends. They will betray you more quickly, for they are easily aroused to envy. And oddly enough, I've been writing about Pablo Escobar now for the past 5 years, and one of his favorite quotes was, "More people die from envy in Colombia than cancer." They also become spoiled and tyrannical. But hire a former enemy, and he will be more loyal than a friend, because he has more to prove. In fact, you have more to fear from friends than from enemies. If you have no enemies, find a way to make them. So before I hand it over to you, just going back to the Skinner story that I mentioned in Law 1. So I get to Arizona, and all the local rave people, their nickname for me is the Bank of England. So I harmonize all these little cliques that were competing into one organization. Skinner becomes my top sales guy, spending a lot of time with Skinner, partying our asses off on the weekends together and all this stuff. Everything's going really good. Wildman come over, my best friend from childhood. So I'm now spending a lot of time with Wildman. Skinner's not a very big guy, but Wildman's this huge guy that Skinner is intimidated by. So now I've got two of my closest friends, and they're developing this dislike of each other. And at the end of the day, our organization fell because of witness statements. There was 10 witness statements. And the main witness that gave them the most information about the inside of the organization was Skinner, who was my friend, who knew the most because he was my friend.
Yeah. And right on that point, Shaun, there's a quote, and it's just a few words. And this is from the 16th century, from the mistress of Henry II of France. And it says, "To have a good enemy, choose a friend. He knows where to strike." And when I revised this law and read that, it just made it. The first thing that came to my mind was, we see this unfold a lot in the male-female relationship, because when that male-female relationship breaks down, a woman, always exception to the rule, but more often than not, a woman can't physically hurt a man, so she knows where to strike him, and she will punish her former partner in that natural process when love turns to hate. And it's quite a in my opinion, it's quite a natural feeling to want revenge on people when we feel harmed. But again, I reiterate and I say again, you know, the importance of having that presence of mind, and to you know, the god of war. You sort of go slightly off topic, but into the art of war stuff. The god of war is someone who is the master of emotions and stratagem, and is somebody who constantly responds and not reacts, Shaun, to an ever-changing and ever-flowing series of events and situations and scenarios, you know. So, yeah, I mean, there's some interpretation here. So on all the laws, Robert Greene's got some interpretation, and it's quite kind of apt. So it says, a Chinese proverb compares friends to the jaws and teeth of a dangerous animal. If you are not careful, you will find these jaws chewing you up. Emperor Sung, when he took the throne, knew his friends in the army would chew him up, so he bribed his fellow generals with big properties far away, which was a better option than to kill them, which would only infuriate other generals. Instead of relying on friends, Sung used his enemies to further his interests. Sung used his enemies one after the other, transforming them into far more reliable subjects. A friend expects more and more favours and seethes with envy, yet former enemies expect nothing but get everything. A man suddenly spared from the guillotine is a very grateful man and will go to the ends of the earth for the man who saved him. So, you know, why are the people closest to us, Shaun, so aroused to envy? Now, envy is the ugliest of all human emotion. It's not an emotion that we are open and transparent about admitting, oh, I'm jealous of you, Shaun. I feel jealous of you, you know. And again, the book undoes the stereotype. Honesty does not always strengthen relationships. So in therapy and stuff like that, oh, be honest, you know, does my bum look big in this? Your girlfriend? Yes, that's not going to strengthen your relationship. So you lie. Yeah. So the reason people close to us are so easily aroused to envy. So I kind of break down envy into two things. I call one kind of like a natural envy. So we naturally arouse envy in the people closest to us if we are intelligent, if we are handsome and have good looks, if we are exceptionally skilled in some particular talent, wealth, and we can downplay intelligence, but those kind of things, you know, naturally we're going to arouse envy in others. Then we have like a different, the other kind of envy that I would talk about would be kind of an envy that we purposely arouse in others. And a great example, and I know this is going to click straight in your head when I say it, because it happens every single day in the custodial prison environment. When somebody gets some good news, they run around the landing and run around the wing telling everybody and telling people who they hardly ever speak to. You know, and I'm in my cell and I've got all these people coming to my door. Oh, I've got my tag, I'm getting out. And I've got an indeterminate sentence, very disrespectful. You probably get smashed in America for it. And, you know, but it could be anything. It could be nothing to do with getting out. It could any kind of good news. You know, they come and they ram it down your throat and you might be having a day from hell and you just arouse. And like I said, if you don't have the awareness how you're coming across, you're going to stir up hatred towards you because it's all magnified in prison. It's so intense, times 100, you know. And on the reversal, Shaun, when I get good news, you know, it takes a lot of discipline for me not to come and ram it down your throat. And I'm sitting on this good news and it's so difficult, you know, and I had to learn this. And then I would crumble and cave in and I'd go and tell someone, but then I'd regret telling them because I would assess it in my mind and I would be like, what benefit was there in telling this person? You know, there was no benefit. It hasn't improved any of my life at all. So over time, I just learned to kind of, you know, have the discipline to not ram good news down people's throats because it just upsets people, you know?
Yeah, in prison, I had a lot of co-defendants in the jail system in the beginning. This is Towers Jail again now, Maricopa County. And one of my co-defendants was called Joey Crack. The Italian mafia guys we clicked up with in the jail, he put him in with my cell as a cellmate with me. And Joey Crack had a friend in the cell next door. The skinny kid didn't look like anything, but he was a kickboxer, and big dudes would pick on him. And he had such a powerful punch, he would knock them out, and they would invariably crap on themselves. So the kickboxing kid, a female guard, came to his cell one day, and he looks up and he sees her, and he's like, he basically like falls in love with this woman, and he starts writing her poems and everything. And she starts pulling him out of the cell and telling him to, you know, go to the broom closet and stuff like this. And they're starting to get it on. Yeah. So he brags to Joey Crack. Joey Crack tells me, I'm like, nah, this woman was stunning, brunette guard. I was like, nah, he's just making this up. And Joey Crack goes, no, he's not. After lockdown, 10 o'clock at night, he jumps on the toilet and he dances naked for her at the front of the cell. So at 10 o'clock at night, come to the front of your cell and look out the window. And she was just like smiling up at him, and he's like, I can't see him, but I understand what's going on. So he's got this absolutely brilliant situation going for himself in prison, which is quite unique. But he started to tell too many of his friends, and those friends are then thinking, why aren't I getting some? Maybe if I snitch him out, I can try and seduce her next. Yeah. All these envious thoughts are going through these guys' heads, and they're plotting against him. So that lasted for about 2 weeks before someone dropped a kite and she was moved.
And when we develop an awareness of this ugly emotion of envy and recognize how potentially dangerous it is, we start to see the signs of it. So the earliest signs, once you read and study this stuff, you see it all the time. You see it all the time. The earliest signs will be criticism, little criticisms. So I'll tell you something positive and you will just say something negative about the positive thing that I've told you. And then straight away, it's like, I don't know, it's like a sixth sense. I just see that as danger. Now, on the subject of friends, when I was a chronic recidivist who continually committed serious violent offences, and I was in and out of prison with no regard for victims of crime, no regard for the harm that I was causing society, and I was selfish and entrenched with pro-criminal thinking and completely distorted attitudes about life and people and blah, blah, blah. When I was like that, I had a lot of friends. I had a wide range of friends, all sorts of different friends, and none of them were positive influences, whether we were stealing cars or out burgling or robbing or whatever we were doing. And this is from a very early age, 12, 13, 14, you know, all the way up until I was given an indeterminate sentence when the courts had just had enough of me and gave me this 99-year indeterminate sentence, age 24. You know, I had all these, you know, this big group of friends. Today in my life, so, I mean, that was 13 years ago. Today in my life, I don't really have friends, yeah? And the reason I don't have friends is because I'm extremely ambitious, Shaun, and I'm working on a wide range of different projects. I'm trying to finish my degree, which has took me many years at the Open University. I'm trying to finish my degree. I'm working on a business plan to set up my own business. I'm not going to go too much into what that is, but it's kind of legal orientated, criminal justice orientated. I'm working on that plan to pitch money at the end of this, pitch for money for a loan at the end of the summer. I'm immersed in the service of others and trying to help others and trying to help people instead of harm people like I used to before. I'm engaged in a lot of quite draining and challenging activism with politicians and the British government to try and get things changed, and fighting for victims of crime, racism, for two topics that I'm fighting for. And in my opinion, and in my life experience, not just something I've read in Robert Greene's book, a big circle of friends is counterproductive in me achieving the ambitious heights that I aspire to in my life today, Shaun. And I mean, I've got a best friend, but he's married. I'm lucky to get an email off him every couple of months. I've got people who I might go and watch the football and shoot the breeze with, but they don't come to my house. And unless I only want people around me who cheer me on, lift me up and inspire me. Yeah. Any of that envy, criticism, negativity, I'll just cut you off so quick. You won't know what's hit you. I just don't want it around me. Energy vampires, they just get into your pores and, you know, they take you hostage and want to bring you down because people just don't like seeing people succeed, Shaun.
That was Pablo Escobar's downfall, actually. So the official version of events was that Pablo was shot by the Colombian National Police.
Right, yeah.
Actually, what happened was the president, Gaviria, he brought out a row of policemen. He'd invited the media and he said, these are the guys who killed Pablo Escobar, make them heroes.
Oh, the picture on the roof. Is that the picture on the roof?
Yeah, it's all staged. It's all staged. Pablo Escobar's faction, there was a faction of the Medellin cartel called the Castaigne Brothers, who you don't hear too much about. But the Castaigne Brothers were like paramilitaries. Their dad had been kidnapped by the guerrilla group and they paid a ransom, but it wasn't enough, and they tortured and killed their dad. So they were on this mission to wipe out all these guerrillas. Now, that's a right-wing thing, and Pablo was a lefty, but they clicked, and to the point where even when Pablo was in the cathedral prison that he'd built for himself, when one of the Castaigne brothers was worried about his own safety, Pablo let him come and stay with him, and they shared the same bathroom and all this stuff. So when Pablo started to cannibalize some of his friends, the Castaños got afraid. They knew the complete inner workings of the Medellin cartel. And when some of their friends got killed by some of Pablo's men, they formed a death squad called Los Pepes, which was financed by the Cali cartel.
Yeah.
Castaños said they were going to cut up Pablo's kids and send them to him in a sack, chop them up and send them into a sack. And they killed the kid's nanny. They killed the kid's teacher. They knew that the family was his weakness. And in the end, you know, even his son believes that his dad didn't want to get captured by the Castaños. The Castaños said if they were going to catch Pablo Escobar alive, they were going to have a doctor surgically remove his arms and legs and keep him alive and throw the stump on the streets of Medellin, and that would guarantee their legend. So Pablo knew that was coming. So when this death squad, they were helped by police technology and the Cali cartel and the CIA and all these other agencies after Pablo, but the death squad always went in first on the raids. So when the death squad went in on the day Pablo died, Pablo knew he was going to fall into the hands of the Castaños. He'd already said he was going to put one in his ear, so it got right into his brain, and that's how he died. So again, it was through his friends that they brought him down in the end. Yeah,
every time. I remember when I was on G-Wing on the Wrapped unit in HMP Wayland. It was a small unit, 36 men, 18 on each landing, and I was selling tobacco. And I used to go in the recess where the showers were, and I'd lock the door in the toilet, and I would get my book out and do all my numbers, who owes me what, work it all out, and then go out in the yard, collect the tobacco. And someone put a note in the box. And I used to have it with two people, and there was a guy from South London and another guy from North London, and those are the two guys I used to spend all my time with. Now, when the note went in the box, I was challenged by the wing staff, and it was just the last things I was expecting, Shaun. That they've just pulled me, and they're like, "Are you selling tobacco on the wing, and are people in debt to you?" I said, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." And then I was like, "Oh, they know." And again, it's that presence of mind. It's because it's very confusing in these extreme environments when this stuff happens, because you don't know who's done it to you. And it's extremely, extremely difficult to maintain that presence of mind. But long story short, it was the guy from South London, and it was the guy that I was closest to. And I know it was him. I know for a fact it was him. Then I put a hit on him. I put a contract on him. I put 10 packs of burn. The guy, Brendan Burt, who I spoke about in the last podcast, trained to go, just game as you like. And I gave him 5 packs of tobacco. And I said, I'll give you the other 5 when it's done. And he was just, where is he? Where is he on the yard? Which one is he? Point him out. And again, you know, I was going through therapy, meditating, playing football, drinking green tea, feeling all spiritual. And I reversed the hit. Because I just felt like I didn't want to be responsible for what he would do to him, because he'd have really hurt him. And it was a time when I was going through change. So yeah, I reversed the hit, but you know, you feel that betrayal, don't you? The betrayal, and betrayal's a powerful feeling as well, Shaun. It's a very, you know, to feel betrayed by somebody close to you is a difficult feeling, and the default position is revenge. I want revenge, you know. I want to harm you, and I'll fantasize about harming you, and you know, again, I keep emphasizing presence of mind to respond and not to react, you know, because in an ideal situation, in that situation, I would, you play dumb to catch wise. Another thing the 48 Laws of Power teaches us, you play dumb to catch wise. So I would know it was him, but I would still keep him close to me, keep them close, you know. But it was very difficult, and I remember it being a very challenging time around that time, because you know the stakes are high. I'm getting 2-year parole knockbacks with this security intelligence. 2-year parole knockback. I've got no right to release. Yeah, the parole board is more powerful than a court. A court can give Shaun Attwood 30 years, but the parole board in America never has to let you out. They don't ever left, and that's the only way you're getting out, unless you get your conviction overturned, which is unlikely. So, you know, it's difficult, and it's very difficult, and you've got to be able to deal with these situations, and the 48 Laws of Power helps you to deal with these situations.
Yeah, and I'd like to add a bit to this then. So I've learned over time that if you treat your friends well, you can put more trust in them. So, example, everybody who worked for me had legal benefits. If they got arrested, get a lawyer assigned to them, get bail money. You know, we all partied together, after party together. If they had problems, you know, we would call each other and we would try and sort things out diplomatically. So we were a very tight-knit community. There was about 200 people working for me at the peak of it. Over 100 got arrested. And out of those, only 4 agreed to cooperate with the prosecutor. Now, Sammy the Bull, the competitor in the ecstasy market, he got arrested a year or so before me, 57 co-defendants, and they all agreed to cooperate with the police. Now, going back to Escobar again, Escobar's main crime partner was his cousin, Gustavo Gaviria. Now, they started doing little small scams as kids, like getting the exam results and stealing fruit and selling the exam results to the kids and all this kind of stuff. And then it escalated into like stealing cars and chop shops and bribing things. And then it escalated into murder for hire, robbing banks, killing. Some of his first murders were the DAS, which was the FBI equivalent, basically held Pablo and Gustavo hostage, and they were going to kill them. And Pablo talked them into letting Gustavo go to bring them some bribery money to let them go. But then the cops tried it again on them, and Pablo grabbed the cops this time, and he shot them, killed them. So the difference between Pablo and Gustavo was, Pablo, when he did a deal, there was always some money left over, and whoever he was doing the deal with, it'd say, you keep that little bit. It'd be a lot, but he'd say, keep that little bit. But Gustavo was so stingy, he never paid anything extra for anybody, and he counted all the pennies and made sure he had everything in his own pocket. So Gustavo died years before Pablo, but he treated people differently. Pablo was extremely generous and spread the wealth around and really took care of his people. That's why so many people, stood with him until the end. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been. You made me kind of think about I've been watching a lot of content recently, mafia content. Sammy the Bull, when he turned and he did the 4 or 5 years for 19 murders. Then he got out, but then he done the Arizona thing, and then he got the long sentence. He done like 2 decades in prison, and he was doing it with his son. And I've been watching a lot of American content, Supermax content, doing a bit of research on the Aryan Brotherhood and all that kind of stuff. And in that world, and in that world you were in, this stuff it's like a poker game. One wrong move and your lights are out. That and it comes from your friend. It's very, very kind of intense stuff. Very intense stuff. And I liken it to poker because you can play a 20-hour session down at the Vic on Edgware Road. At 2-5 cash, full ring, 9 players. And you can have all the attributes of a great poker player and be practicing them, the staying power, the alertness, the ability to constantly make good decisions and have presence of mind when you're constantly having to digest information, because poker's a game of people and they all give away information. And then one wrong move and you lose all your chips.
Yeah.
One wrong move. One wrong move. So, yeah.
And do you have any examples from your life of learning how to use your enemies? Because that's the other part of that law, isn't it? As well as putting too much trust in your friends.
I wouldn't say that I've ever kind of risen in any kind of power structure enough to where that I've had the lived experience to be able to answer that, Shaun. But what I would say is I would definitely agree that, you know, a former enemy will just do anything they can to try and please you. You know, if you save someone or give them a give them a pass on something when there could have been bad consequences. Because I used to give drugs to people and people would let me down and stuff like that. And, you know, those situations used to escalate. And if you give someone a pass when you've pursued them and, you know, been a perpetrator of violence towards them or sent people to be violent towards them, and then you give them a pass because you've been friends for years since you were kids, they're very keen to prove to you their worth and prove, you know, that they can make it up to you. So it is true what Robert Greene says. Yeah,
I've got another Escobar story that goes against this. Probably an extrapolation. So Pablo had a friend that was sentenced to life on some prison island, and Pablo did the necessary bribery to get him out and gave him a job within his organization, had him living with him in Hacienda Nápoles, this sprawling estate. So somebody noticed that a couple of grand had gone missing, and someone tipped Pablo off that the guy he'd rescued from the prison island had took it. And Pablo said, look, this guy was going to spend the rest of his life on this prison island. He's my friend. I've given him a job. There's no way this guy's going to have the money.
Yeah.
So they went to his room and found the money. So Pablo, I think they tied him to a crane or something. And then he called everybody to the swimming pool. And they just dunked this guy in until he was nearly dead and brought him up again, and dunked him until he was nearly dead and brought him up again. And just did this over and over again until he died. And then Pablo said to everybody, you know, this is what happens if you steal from me. Yeah, I don't care if you're my friend or not. Don't steal from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it say, if my memory's correct, does it say about becoming tyrannical?
No, I think... Oh, yeah, it does, yeah. Here we go. Yeah, with the envy, they also become spoiled and tyrannical.
Yeah, so spoiled and tyrannical. So I remember, again, it was with Scousers. I was working with Scousers, and there was a group of them.
People from Liverpool.
Very, very, very violent young men. Great personalities, fantastic charisma. Just, they loved the cocaine, loved the Ciroc, loved bringing girls back. Extremely loyal, but extremely violent if you cross them. And there was like a power struggle because he was paying me wages, the boss was paying me wages, and we were all working. And he on a couple of occasions, he gave me more than one of the other fellas, one of the Scousers. And this guy was just seething with envy towards me. He was, and it was just oozing out of him sideways, Shaun, you know, the comments, slagging me off in the kitchen and all this kind of stuff. And it just, that again, it escalated quite quick. And then he just kicked off one night saying, how can you give him this? And, you know, and you only give me that. And he became very spoiled and tyrannical because the boss was looking after him very well. But it's, you know, like Robert Greene says, they just want more and more and nothing's enough. And this situation escalated really quickly, and they nearly killed him. I mean, he went out, he kind of went AWOL, he went MIA, and then he smashed the car up. We had a TDI new white Golf outside the property, and he smashed it up. And then they were looking for him, and I was with them. And then we found him, and we found him in like a crack house where drug addicts were using drugs. And what they did to him was, I mean, it was just horrific. I mean, they beat him with a house brick and a brandy Courvoisier bottle, and you know, and they were friends. They were friends, like they'd known each other for years. And the boss he was always respectful to me. I mean, I always had a great rapport with him. I quite liked him. I quite liked him. But yeah, that's what happened with him, and he that is a great example of what I can recall of somebody becoming, you know, within the ranks, becoming tyrannical, because him feeling that he deserved more and that the boss wasn't giving it to him, you know, and they really hurt him, Shaun, really hurt him bad.
So wrapping up law number 2 here then, things that you can use out there in the world. When we get good news, something brilliant happens in our lives, there is this natural tendency to just start gushing at the mouth and wanting to tell everybody about it. And it can create envy, which then brings on these problems. Like Pepsi said, if you're telling a friend this brilliant thing that's happened to you, and the friend says something that you're not expecting back, something critical back, or asks a weird question that's not really a positive, that then takes you out of your mind, puts you in their mind, and gives you a read on what they're really thinking about what you're saying. So if you go to prison, for example, and you start bragging about being the biggest gangster in the world, you're pulling heists in Las Vegas and having sex with showgirls, and you got $100 C notes stapled to your head. If you go boasting about all this stuff, you're going to get reduced rapidly in prison, because there's a whole legion of people who've got absolutely nothing, and they think you're just, you know, you're in there thinking you're some big shot, and it's all ego. It may make you feel good saying these things in the beginning, this bragging, but they will go in on you like a pack of wolves at the end of the day, because you're going to create that envy. So if you are unfortunate enough to end up in prison, then stay humble. It was a very humbling experience for me. My ego was as big as the Grand Canyon. I was running around thinking I was a kingpin and stuff. I thought I was a wild and crazy party person. In prison, they were 10 times wilder and crazier than me, so it was a very humbling experience. So if you do end up in prison, lay low, keep your mouth shut, find out who's who, and then make alliances with the right people and only confide with them over time. That's survival advice right there.